Hey guys, it's me, Anchor64 again for another video. This time I'm going to talk about parsing and how to improve your DPS. This is mostly focused on DPS warriors, but if you play another class, this might be useful also for you, because I will explain some general things which could be very useful for you. So overall, this is more of an endgame focused guide. So if you are already level 60 trying to improve your DPS and so on, maybe you don't really know what parsing is. I will also explain that. And yeah, this will be in general more of a comprehensive guide where I will go over what is parsing, how is it affected, how is it calculated. Not into too detailed by that, but some stuff, so you know how parsing is actually, what things are affecting parsing, and then things like rotations, consumables, stuff where you can actually improve your parse. But yeah, that's what I want to do. Other than that, we have some general things, and yeah, that's pretty much going to be the whole video. Wanted to kind of make an also like endgame DPS guide. So yeah, as always, if you like these kinds of videos, feel free to subscribe and like. I saw I got actually kind of a lot of subscribers. Like I get more and more. It's pretty fun actually. I wouldn't have thought. Just making like my videos are not the best quality. I don't really do a lot of editing and so on, but still, I think I'm close to like 30 subscribers, which isn't really like massive a lot, but for me it's kind of interesting. I didn't really do a lot of content, but still more and more people like to watch this video. So yeah, thank you first of all for that. I will try to do more and more videos, but let's actually get started with the actual video. So yeah, enough stalling. First of all, what is even a parse? A parse is just a number that pretty much compares you to your own class to everyone else. So basically what I mean by that is, let's say you are a DPS warrior, you do a certain DPS. Let's say you do like 1k DPS on a boss, let's say on, I don't know, on Nefarian for example. Then you will be pretty much compared to every other DPS warrior DPS pretty much, and then you will be ranked accordingly by that. So yeah, if you did the most DPS, for example, let's say you did like 6k and everyone else only did like most, like the second guy maybe did like 4k or 5k, you would be number 1, and that parse would also reflect that. You would also see that. But yeah, more of a general thing, why do we even have things like this, like parsing and so on? So this is mostly a retail thing. So like Warcraft Logs, this is the site which you are pretty much using, and also the tool. Yeah, there's like a tool you can download to actually upload your logs. But yeah, basically it's a retail tool where people used it to just analyze their performance. We have right now in World of Warcraft, we have tools like combat logs, which are built into the system, and you can actually use an option where you have advanced combat logs. So you get even more information in your combat logs, which is just a text file that's generated, and you can upload these logs into like Warcraft Logs, and Warcraft Logs analyzes it, kind of makes it online, and then it gets pretty much, you can actually see compared to everyone else how you are doing things, dispels, whatever. There's a lot of information. But yeah, that's pretty much what people use in retail WoW. It got brought over to Classic. A lot of people don't really like parsing. It's kind of controversial. My personal opinion, I think it's kind of needed because the content isn't really that hard, and trying to optimize it, getting like higher and higher DPS numbers and so on is kind of something which I personally find very fun. However, I also need to be like not really biased, non-biased and so on. I can see why it's also brought over some negatives, like the parsing mindset is not really that good. Just focusing on high DPS numbers and so on, doing like cheese tactics and so on, I don't really like. There are a lot of negative stuff as well, but I think in general it's kind of needed. If we didn't have like things like parsing, we were we would already all be using things like details anyway and so on. So yeah, this is kind of the same thing, to be honest. Okay. However, this is like, of course, public details and so on isn't, but whatever. Enough with that. So yeah, parsing. How does it get calculated? So let's say you are in Fury Warrior. It's also really important which spec you are playing. So let's say you are in Fury Warrior. You, I don't know, do like 2k DPS on Epharian. And you have that log, you upload that log, and then it will get analyzed. And then it will get compared to every other Fury Warrior that did DPS on Epharian. And based on your DPS, you will get a ranking. So that's what these numbers are about pretty much. You can just look up myself actually, why not? Yeah. So first of all, where we can actually look up stuff, we need to go to this website, fresh.warcraftlogs.com. Then we need to select our expansion. We are right now on Classic Fresh. Don't get confused, we also have Season of Discovery and Vanilla. These two are not the ones we want to use for like Classic Anniversary. We want to use Classic Fresh. So yeah, that's kind of a difference. Vanilla is like for Classic Era and Season of Discovery is for Season of Discovery. So if you can't find your character, really make sure you have selected the right character actually. So let me actually look it up. Yeah, as you can see, this is my character on Spineshatter.eu. And when you pull up your character, you will get a lot of data, and you will also get your parses and everything. So I don't really have the highest parses, but yeah, I'm trying. But there are certain things that are also not in my control. But yeah, that's pretty much like my profile I have. You can pretty much also type on your own character. You can see if you can actually find it. And then you will pretty much see your own parses. It will get automatically updated as well. And what will also happen is it will always bring up the like most recent raid. So of course, right now we have Blackwing Lair, which is not really the most recent raid. That would be Zul'Gurub. But Blackwing Lair is actually the main raid we are having. So Zul'Gurub is kind of an like 20-man raid. It's not a full raid. So yeah, that's why it doesn't really show up on here. In the first phase, it would show up Molten Core actually. So not even like on Ixia, it would show up Molten Core. So that's one thing you need to know. As you can see, we have some numbers here, right here. So these are the parses I was talking about. So depending on what this basically means, like for example on Razorgore, I'm like in the top 93% of damage dealers. So yeah, there are like 7% of people who have pretty much a better parse than me on that boss fight. So yeah, that's pretty much how it gets calculated. It gets compared to your spec and class as well, which is kind of the same thing. So I played a Fury Warrior and I did this amount of DPS. So that would be compared to every other Fury Warrior at that point. And then I would get ranked pretty much. So yeah, that's pretty much what's happening here. That's also why it's easier to parse on other classes. Like there's a difference. For example, let's say you are playing in Boomkin, then it would be really easy actually for you to get really high parses. But of course, it wouldn't show up in the ranking overall because it would be filled with like Fury Warriors. So yeah, but you would have like 99s and so on, would be way easier for you. For example, compared to me, that's one difference. So I would say the hardest class to actually parse on are like warriors, especially like DPS warriors. Tanks are even another special case. It's also way easier for tanks, but whatever. It's not really the important thing. But yeah, like DPS warriors, I think have the hardest case actually parsing on. I would say the second would be probably rogues, maybe. But yeah, why is that the case? Most people are playing warriors, so you will have a lot of parses, and also warriors are the best DPS class. So also like the most sweatiest and most hardcore people are playing warrior, and that will also inflate the parses. All of this leads to pretty much having a way harder time to actually get really high parses on warriors, for example. That's one thing. If you play another class, let's say you play a red paladin, you would have a lot less people actually like logging and having like parses. So if you would do like a decent amount of DPS, you wouldn't have a lot of competition, and then it would be probably way easier for you to actually get high parses. But yeah, that's one thing. Good. So I talked about how parses are calculated, how you get it. Pretty much in comparison between your class and your spec as well. As you can see, I have like the Fury symbol on here. I think if I go to more core, which I tanked a bit. Yeah, my core parses are not so good. Whatever. Yeah, as you can see, I have like tank parses as well because I tanked some bosses on there. So, like that's another thing that's really important. Because depending on what you play, like if you play a tank or play a DPS class, it's different. I think if you play arms, I think it's also different, but I could be wrong. I don't know if it's already in case in classic, but yeah, because like arms is kind of strange as a warrior, but whatever, that's not really the point. So yeah. Also another thing, as you maybe already saw, you have like different colored numbers. So right now, like these numbers are like purple. This number right here is like blue. And the color also means something. So maybe if you heard like when you're playing WoW, somebody calling someone a gray or a green parser, that's kind of an insult in that direction, because gray parsers are pretty much the lowest you can get, and I think green parsers are like the second lowest you can get. And then you get blue, then purple, then orange. I think then it was pink. And I think the last one is like peach, when you are level like rank 1. When you get a 100 parse, so you would have the highest DPS on that boss fight compared to everyone. Then I think it has like the peach color. I can show you some other warriors because I'm not that good. And yeah, you can see, for example, this guy has like pink numbers, so 99s are like pink. And yeah, oh no, it's not really peach, it's more like orange. Or like yellow, I would say. So yeah, more like yellow. So 100 parses are like yellow. So okay. So that would be one thing. So yeah, if you have like green parses and lower, that's kind of not a good thing. Another thing would be, you would maybe ask yourself, okay, why do we even care about parsing or parses? It's kind of sweaty min-max thing. Why should I aim for having like high or decent parses? Why is that important? Let's say you are in PUC and you are trying to get into a raid or something. Like most people, what they will do who have kind of a good recruiting system, they will actually look up your parses. So things like gear score and so on are of course way less relevant in classic WoW, and also thank God for that. Like I think gear score is way inferior to like parses, but whatever. Yeah, that's one thing we have. So people would actually look up your parses, and if they see you have like green or gray parses, they probably wouldn't invite you or whatever. They would ostracize you, or yeah. It's kind of not a good thing to actually have gray or green parses. You kind of should aim for to have like, I think at least blue, which is like the medium. So that would be a thing you should definitely try to do. Yeah, that's what I would recommend actually. If you don't really have that, also another thing is, let's say you want to get into a guild. Maybe you want to get into a guild which is kind of bit more try hard. They will 100% definitely look up your parses, and depending on that will maybe like invite you or not. You also have some, I would say, leverage in your guild when you can say you have like the highest parses, because if you do the most DPS and there is the highest DPS warrior, you have some leverage over other warriors, for example, where you can get gear a bit easier if you have a kind of fair like loot counter and so on. So yeah, I would always try to like Yeah, especially, I think my personal opinion, it's also really fun to chase like high Parses, but that's the subjective thing. If you don't really like it, you don't really do it. There's also a lot of cheese involved, which I don't really do, and I don't really like. Okay, so yeah, I think that's everything about Parses, first of all. So how can we increase Parses? Mostly, I will just summarize it. So what we need to do is we just need to do more DPS. That's pretty much it. We need to do more DPS than our competition. So if we play a Fury Warrior, we want to do more DPS than the other Fury Warriors that we're also logging. I don't really want to get into too much detail how you actually upload logs on here, or you can actually get a parse or something. What also can happen is a lot of people that don't really know about parsing anything, but like if one person in your raid logged and uploaded it into here, you will also show up on there. Unless you have your stuff hidden, you can actually do some settings where you won't show up on here. I can maybe make a separate video where I will explain how you can actually upload your logs and make yourself like private if you don't really want to show up on here or something like that. But yeah. That's another thing. But yeah, mostly what we want to do is we want to just increase our DPS. That's everything we want to do. So I will get into now how we can actually do that. So what do we need to do to actually increase our DPS? Sorry, my nose is kind of clogged. So let's actually go to the first thing. So how we can increase our DPS, we need to do more DPS. So the first thing I would talk about is actually buffs. So, and the most important buffs we have in the game, which is also a classic exclusive thing, are world buffs. And also SOD, but yeah, I don't really... yeah, you know what I mean. So I made this, which you can see right here, I made this graphic. It's pretty simple, but what it pretty much has every world buff, and also, depending on the difficulty, I made kind of a graph, something like that. 1 second. So yeah, you definitely, if you want to do high DPS, you definitely want to try to grab every world buff you can. So that sounds kind of annoying. It is kind of annoying. I'm not the biggest fan of world buffs. Actually, I can't wait until we see where we don't use world buffs. But yeah, that's another topic. The only thing I really like about world buffs is just traveling throughout the world. That's kind of fun actually, going to the different places. But yeah, what I don't really like is, for example, you die and world buffs are so broken that you pretty much lost like the DPS of like 2 or 3 warriors. So just by dying once, because world buffs are so insane. They are so insanely broken. It's actually insane. So the highest priority for you should be definitely grab your world buffs. Just looking at the stats, for example, you can just look at Dragon Slayer. We get 10% spell crit, 5% melee range crit, 140 attack power. So we are just going to focus on this. 5% melee crit would be like 5 items. Okay, some items have 2% crit, so maybe not really 5 items, but let's say like 5 items, which would give you 1% critical chance, and 140 AP attack power is like 70 strength. Which is really insane just from run buff. This is just one buff. We have others as well. So yeah. As I said, like this graph tells you how easy they are to get. So there are like 2 buffs I would recommend everyone to get at the minimum. So you definitely want to grab these 2, which would be the Dragon Slayer buff, which you can just get staying FK in your main city. That would be Stormwind for Alliance and Ogrimmar for Horde. So just say AFK there and you will just get it, boon it, and you have it. I also talked about this I think in my Warrior guide I talked about this as well. If I remember right. Next one we have the Spirit of Zandalor, another buff, which is pretty new, which got introduced in this phase. But yeah, you can get this one, just stay AFK the same way, but you need to stay AFK in Booty Bay or on that island where you can actually turn in your reputation items like coins and such. But I would just recommend just stay AFK in Booty Bay, get it. But yeah. For example, this one gives us a lot of stats. This one is kind of an better Kings, like 15% stats. Insane. really easy to get, both of them. Next one, which are kind of harder to get, are like Sunflower Serenade, plus 15 to all stats, plus 5 spell melee range crit. This is another one which is also really insane. However, this one only lasts for 60 minutes, which is kind of annoying. Also more annoying to get. You need to travel to Bellwood, grab an... need to find an corrupted Sunflower, need to cleanse it, and then you can get this one. But yeah, it's not really that hard, to be honest. I would always recommend everyone to get it. You kind of have like 1 week. Just try to do it like maybe in 1 day. What I really find annoying, however, is like the boon cooldown is 1 hour, which I really hate. I wish it would just be like 10 minutes or something, because that's just way too stupid. Yeah, you always need to wait 1 hour. They are probably like the best, most efficient way to grab these. However, I just try to grab them one by one. So yeah, that would be another one. Next one we have Resist Fire. This one is not really like a world buff, more like an thing you would grab before you would do like Blackwing Lair, so you can mind control and mob in Blackrock Spire, like right at the start. I think they are called like Spellbinders or something. And you can mind control them if you have a priest, and then the priest can pretty much give you this buff, which is a nice amount of fire resistance, which is actually really nice for some boss fights, like Firemaw, for example. You definitely want to have this buff for Firemaw, so you can resist some procs, and you can actually do more damage. Like, you can actually stay longer before, trying to, you get actually less stacks and so on. Yeah. Another one we have which is kind of medium, which are the Diamol buffs. However, these are, I think, in my personal opinion, easier to get than the Sunflower one, because there are a lot of people selling even summons to Diamol, so you could pay someone, I think, like 15 gold or something, and then you could get summoned and also get these buffs. You just need to enter Diamol, grab a buff, like walk all the way to the end, talk to an NPC, which would give you a buff. You would be like King of the Ogres. There are like 100 videos about that, how you can do that. And then you talk to like 3 different ogres, and each one, like each guard, gives you a different buff. So one gives you 15% max HP, which is really important actually. One gives you 200% 200 AP, not 200%, 200 attack power, and another one gives you 3% spell critical. So yeah, just talk to the 3 guards, get every buff. They are also like world buffs, and you can have all 3 of them. Another really huge increase, 200 attack power is really insane. And now we are at the end talking about 2 world buffs which are kind of difficult to get, depending on, they have some conditions. So that's why they are conditional. The first one would be War Chief's Blessing. So this one is another one where you can just stay AFK in the Barrens. So at like Crossroads, Ratchet, or I think also in Ogrima, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Horde, but you can just easily get that one if you're Horde. Also, this one says Horde only, but this is wrong. You can get this one for Alliance as well, as an Alliance player. However, that's where the difficulty comes from. You need someone else to actually get it, and I think there are some really strange ways where you can also get it by yourself, but yeah, whatever. Most of the time you want to have someone else. So what you will need is, you will need to have a player from the opposite faction. Like, you would, for example, you are an Alliance, you want to have this buff, you need like a Horde friend or someone, or your own alt, like your own other accounts which you would have, and you need to mind control, like that friend or so needs to mind control you right when this one is popping. So there are some add-ons for that which can help you, like Nova World buffs, which can just pretty much tell you when, like a couple seconds before that one would proc, so they have some time, and they pretty much need to mind control you. So things like this one engineering mind control helmet, which is, for example, one of our guildmates is always providing us with that buff, luckily, so I don't really need to pay someone. You can also pay for that one to get it. Or you can have a priest mind control you. So that are the two things. That's also why it's conditional. It's way, like, it's so easy for Horde, but for Alliance it's really annoying to get. But yeah, this one is just really broken because there's 15% melee haste. And melee haste is one thing that is really rare. You don't really see it a lot. And it's really broken because, like, haste in general is like my most favorite stat. It's so rare, but we get it a lot in TBC, for example. And it's really fun, actually, like seeing how fast you can actually auto attack and so on. And this also affects our damage with like heroic strike because you can cast more heroic strikes and so on. It's actually really fun. So this one is really insane. We just definitely want to have this one, even if we are aligned. Next one, we have the Dark Moon Fair buff. This is probably the most annoying one, like, let's be honest. Why is this one the most annoying one? You can only get this from a certain time frame, I think every like Monday or so. Like every month. I think the first Monday or the first Sunday, I forgot kind of. Dark Moon Fair opens, and it is only open for a couple of days, and you can actually get this buff from there. There's a certain NPC which can tell you your fortune, and you can, depending on what fortune you choose, like for what dialogue options, you get different buff. For us, for example, we always want to have like 10% damage, which would be the first one. We just spam the first option and then we get this one. However, what is really annoying, first of all, it's not always open, so that's one thing. Another thing is, it can either spawn in Goldshire or it can spawn in Mulgore. So, depending on what faction you are playing, and if you are on a PvP server, which I am, you are kind of screwed in that way. So I think the next one will be opened in Mulgore, so that will be really fun for me to trying to get this one. So yeah, that's why it's really annoying. But these are like all the world buffs we have. Definitely, if you want to have a higher Parse, definitely try to get this one. This is like the where you don't really need to use your brain or something, or need like gear or something. This is way more important than gear. Like, gear is one thing, but this is way more important. Like, world buffs are so broken. When TBC launched and world buffs got kind of removed, we actually did less DPS because the world buffs were so strong. Especially for us warriors, world buffs are just so insane. So definitely get them. This should be your first priority every time. And yeah, also, a lot of groups are pretty much demanding you should get world buffs, or you're just not getting invited and so on. So yeah, that's another thing. Also, one thing, for example, if you are playing Alliance, some raids give you an extra SR, so an extra soft reserve, when you get War Chief's Blessing. So you can kind of use that to get an extra SR. So yeah, that would be another thing. Next one, we have Consumables, and I will just use the Wowhead guide for this. It has pretty much everything. I also talked about another video about consumables, but consumables are another thing where we can increase our DPS. So first I will just talk about passive things which can just improve our DPS. The combination between like buffs and consumables, which are also buffs, and yeah, that will pretty much give us a huge DPS increase just by that alone. So what do we have right now? We have some consumables. These are like the most important mentioned. We have our sharpening stones. This also depends on what you are playing. If you are playing on Horde and you have Wind Fury in your group, you only need like one sharpening stone, and that would go on your offhand actually. If you are two-handing, which is a thing you can do as a Horde player, you wouldn't use a sharpening stone at all. You definitely want that Wind Fury. So because these ones replace your Wind Fury, however, Wind Fury only applies to your main hand. So we can still use one on our offhand. And elemental sharpening stones are the expensive ones. I think on my server right now they are like fluctuating between like, I think 20 to like 25 gold or something. So yeah, they can be pretty expensive. That's just for one, I think, even. Then sharpening stones are a lot cheaper. But yeah, if you aren't crit capped yet, these are a really nice massive damage increase. If you are crit capped, you don't really need to use them. You can just get some dense sharpening stones, which are way cheaper. Next one we have Juju Power and Juju Might. I will also mention some alternatives. We have one right here, but whatever. These are the Jujus. I made an extra guide for that. You can just watch it. It's called, I think, Winter Spring Juju Guide. And yeah, you can pretty much get these Jujus in Winter Spring. You can either use them on yourself or on allies, which is kind of annoying, to be honest. I definitely had some situations where I used like Juju Might on some allies, and these are pretty expensive. You can't actually buy these, but you can buy the item you would need for them. For example, let me open Juju Power, and you get that by a quest, and you need like Winterfall Echoes, and you can buy these off the auction house. But these vary depending on which ones you are going to get. Yeah, depending on which one you are turning in, you get different Jujus. And yeah, these also then vary in price, and they drop from different mobs, and you need to do like a small quest also to even grab them and use them. But yeah, that's pretty much explained in my Winter Spring Juju guide. You can watch that if you want. So yeah, but I will also mention some alternatives if you don't want to do that. One thing we can't really replace is Elixir of the Mongoose. This one gives us base 25 agility and 2% crit, which is just insane. However, this one is also kind of expensive. They go for like 13 to 15 gold, especially on like raid reset days, which would be tomorrow, for example. Or kind of today even, because it's pretty late right now. But that is the thing which is kind of annoying, because yeah, these can go for a lot. And one thing is for certain, doing a lot of DPS is not cheap. So I personally spent, I don't know how much gold I spent. I think like 400 gold, 500 gold per reset or something. I think it was 400. So yeah, it's actually really expensive to have like every consume. But what can you do? It's yeah, Classic and Versus is kind of inflated in that way. Next one we have Mighty Rage Potion. These are pretty much our unused potions we would use just to give us some juice, so some rage, and we get a nice strength bonus. So 60 strength for 20 seconds. There are lower ones, but the lower ones don't give us that strength. So they would only give us some rage, which isn't that huge. So definitely try to grab these. These are actually not that expensive. I think they cost like 3 to 4 gold in on my server on Spine Shatter. But yeah, definitely try to grab these. These are actually really nice. And try to bind them somewhere, or what I used to do, or what I am using, is I bind them to Recklessness, because they kind of have the same duration. But yeah, I just bind them to my Recklessness button. So even if my Recklessness is on cooldown, I can still use that button to pop a Mighty Rage Potion. And Recklessness is 15 seconds, this one is 20 seconds. But I will get into doing rotation and so on in a bit. So you would also have that. Okay, let's go to some other stuff. Let's go through some other stuff. We have the wall buffs, of course, which I already explained. We have some alternatives, which we have flasks. So one thing is, you should kind of think about using some stuff to boost your survivability, actually, because if you die, you are losing all of your buffs. So you want to be kind of tanky, actually. So don't forget that. That is kind of important. So what else do we have? We have some other stuff as well. We have like Flash of the Titans, which can give you some massive HP boost, 1200 HP, pretty much. So yeah. However, this would be one of the last things I would get, because this one is pretty expensive. It costs over 100 gold, and I would rather go for the DPS consumables. So if you can't get Mongoose, you can also get Greater Agility, which just gives you 25 agility. But of course, it doesn't give you like the 2% crit. So this one is way worse. As you can see, pretty much gives you like 1/4 of the crit chance. Yeah. Or no, pretty much 2% crit downgrade. Whatever. These are, however, really cheap. So I would recommend, if you do like, I know, no lower level raids and don't really want to use your expensive consumables, definitely try to maybe use these ones instead. Next one, we have the best food for DPS warriors. For pretty much until the phase right now, so until phase 4, we used to use blessed sun fruits, which we would get by having the Argent Dawn reputation at revealed. So they just give us 10 strength and they are pretty cheap. However, now we in phase 4, there's a new recipe which gives us more strength, like 20 strength, and also for a longer time I think as well. So yeah, we are using these ones. Smoked Desert Dumplings. You can do a quest in Silithus and get that receipt, or you can just buy them off the auction house. They are not that expensive, to be honest. So yeah, definitely try to grab these. These are really nice. I think I have like 40 or so stacked up right now. So yeah. Next one we have Rumsey Rum Black Label. This one is another consumable we can use, which can boost our stamina. However, this one, I actually don't know how expensive they are. You fish them, so you can't actually get them anywhere else. I think you can only get them by fishing, and they are probably pretty expensive. I don't really use them. I use these ones, Gordon Green Grog, which you can just buy off a vendor in Dire Mall. Pretty much what you can do is, when you are getting your Dire Mall world buffs, and you are pretty much friendly with like every ogre because of that buff you have, you can talk to an NPC, which is like right by the start, where you would also get like your HP world buff. He's just sitting there, and you can talk to him, and he's a vendor, and he can sell you these. They are really cheap, and yeah, I stacked up on a lot of them. So yeah, right now I'm using them constantly. I actually kind of forgot about this, but I got recently reminded of that, and yeah, when I grabbed my world buffs, I stocked up on a lot of them. So yeah, definitely try to use them. They are really cheap. They give you 10 stamina for free pretty much. So yeah, definitely try to use them. Next one, we have Elemental Sharpening Stones. These ones give you 2% crit. So if you use 2 of them, like on your main hand and offhand, you would get 4% crit. However, if you are on Horde and in a Wind Fury group, don't use them on your main hand. Only use one on your offhand. So that's really important. So that's also what is stated right here. When we are grouped with a Shaman with Wind Fury Totem. Yeah. If you can't buy these because they are really expensive, try to get Dense Sharpening Stones. They are way less expensive and also give you some damage boost. But yeah, these ones are actually really insane. Especially if you are not crit capped. Okay, good. So next one, you have some Jujus. I explained these. However, the alternative of these is not mentioned, which I kind of feel bad about. Maybe I should have made another graphic. But yeah, I also made like another graphic for rotations, which you will see. Like my glorious paint skills. Whatever. Next one, we have like Juju Mic'd. This one is really nice, but like the materials you need to get for this is you need to get Frostmaul Echoes. And these kind of tend to be really expensive actually. I think last time when I bought them, they were like 7 gold each. You need 3 of them. But I also saw them like 11 gold and so on. So they are kind of annoying to get actually. So definitely try to get them when they are cheap. They are actually the more cheaper alternative. So they are cheaper than the other thing we could get. But they are kind of more annoying because you need to grab the item, you need to buy the item of the auction house, or you farm them yourself. And you need to go to the quest giver and you need to turn them in. You turn in 3 for them and you get 3 Juju Mics, which is actually really nice. One thing that's really annoying about them, they only hold up for 10 minutes. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. Definitely try to stock up on them. However, they are pretty expensive. So that is kind of annoying. However, they are less expensive than the worst alternative, which is Winterfall Firewater. So the alternative would be this one, which gives us 35 attack power, so 5 attack power less. Holds a bit longer, it's like for 20 minutes, so that's the benefit. However, it does less attack power, so that's the most important stuff. And these are also really expensive. A lot of people are farming these. You can't craft them, they only drop from some enemies, like of the Winterfall, Fallbolgs, and Winterspring. And you will see this camped pretty much all the time, so yeah. But I wouldn't really recommend buying them. Do the kind of annoying quest and just get the Juju mics instead of these. You will save up some gold and you will actually have the better consumables. Next one you have Juju power. This one gives us 30 strength and the alternative would be Elixir of Giants. Which is this one, which gives us 25 strength for 1 hour. This one gives us 30 strength for 30 minutes. So this one gives us 5 strength more, which is way better. And also they are not that expensive to get. But also kind of annoying because again you need to go to Winter Spring. What I would recommend, stock up on the echoes and just do like go once to Winter Spring, maybe when you are grabbing your world buffs there anyway, and turn them in and get your consumables. If you don't really want to do that, you can also get giants, of course, no problem. Losing like 5 strength is not that big of a deal. These are also really cheap, so yeah. Definitely stock up on them, because there could be some times where you forgot to grab them and you don't have a strength buff, which is bad. So definitely try to at least have some giants potion in your inventory. Okay, kind of sad they are not mentioned on here, but whatever. Next one is buffs we can get from Blasted Lands. So this would be another thing we can have. So definitely try to grab one of them. I made a video about that as well. You need to get like 3 like different animal parts. Actually, just let me go into here and I can show you that one. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but yeah, it would be that one. You need to do that quest once, and then you can pretty much, it opens up as a repeatable quest, so you can do it every time, but it's pretty much the same thing for both. You need like 3 Snickerfang Joel, which I think dropped from the hyenas around, 2 Blasted Borlang, dropped from the boars, Scorpork Pincer, which dropped from the scorpions. But yeah, I also made a separate video for this one. You get one of them. Definitely use them, they are really strong. Like Roids gives you just 25 strength for 60 minutes. It's free 25 strength, definitely get this one. You can also buy these off the auction house as well. Like not the consumable, but you can buy the things you need for the quest from the auction house. So definitely that's one thing, that's why you see a lot of people farming there when you are there. So maybe you wondered why everyone is farming the mobs around there. That's pretty much why, and some of them are also required for your class quest. But yeah, you definitely need these. One thing that's really annoying about them, you can only hold one, so I would recommend stock up on the quest items when they are cheap. Then you can go to Blasted Lands and just turn them in. You also have another consumable, that is this one, Ground Scorpork Assay, which gives you 25 agility instead, which is of course worse than the strength one. However, let's say you do like multiple raids, or like your raid takes longer and this one runs out or you die, you can actually have both of them in your inventory, which is really nice. So maybe you don't have roids anymore, you can just use this one also as well. But you can't have both of them at the same time active. However, you can have both in your inventory. So yeah. Now another thing we have is we have the new Zanzas, which got introduced in phase 4. So I have this new phase with ZG. You need to have revered reputation with the new Zandalari reputation, and then you need one of the what are they called again? You need one of the honor tokens, which you get by doing like one of the turning in the Bijou coin or turning in the coins. For example, what I mean by that is, let's get to this one. Yeah, you need this one, Zandala Honor Token. You get this pretty much by turning in coins, which drop in ZG, or you buy them off the auction house, or turning in a Bijou, I think, or no, you destroy a Bijou, whatever. Then you can also get an honor token from that. And you need one honor token, and you need to be revered, and then you can turn that in and grab one of these. They don't give us any damage benefit, like none of them. We have, for example, this one, which gives us 50 spirit, 50 stamina, which is actually really strong. This one is really nice survivability potion, like a buff. So definitely try to grab this. Holds for 2 hours, which is really nice. This one gives us 3% movement speed, which is really nice when you are 20%, sorry. Like 20%, so insane actually. 20% run speed, which is really nice for leveling and such and doing like outdoor stuff. And this one just gives us reflect, which is kind of nice for PvP. You can only have one active. You can also only have one in your inventory. So yeah. Last time I used one of these, they replaced my roids. So I don't know if that's a bug or yeah, I don't know what happened there. Maybe I had too many buffs, but that could be another thing. I don't know what happened, to be honest. Maybe I just also misremembered. It was definitely some strange things going on. Next one you have like Ripper, Roottuber. I could probably make another separate video just for consumables, so I will try to speed it up a bit. I talked about a lot about consumables. So yeah, this one is just another healing potion we can use, and then we have some protection potions as well here, which can be really important on some fights, especially in AQ. This one will become very important, we pretty much need kind of. But yeah, then we also have grenade and supercharges, which are like engineering specific, which can boost our damage. I currently don't have engineering, but I plan to get it, so I will try to do that. Another thing, which is really important, we definitely 100% want to have free action potions. Why is that important? For example, for this boss right here, for the first boss in Blackwing Lair, he has a mechanic where he stuns you pretty much. So if you don't have a free action potion, pretty much goodbye for you to do any relevant damage on that fight. You 100% want to pop a free action potion before you start the fight. You can always also see that in my, I think where I did like 2.4k DPS on Velostress, I fought as a first boss first. That is also in that video. You can see how I pop a free action potion for starting the first boss. But yeah, you will 100% want to do that, so you don't get stunned and actually can do some DPS. But yeah, that's one thing. Another thing that is really nice is yeah, living action potion or limited invulnerability potion, whatever. This is really nice for just being able to pop them when you are getting aggro or something, so you have some immunity to physical attacks. So yeah, that's really definitely, it's like an oh shit potion, something like that. So you have that as well. Then you have some other useful stuff like bandages or whatever. So not the thing that is really important right now. One thing you maybe might be asking is, why aren't we using, for example, if you know your stuff, why aren't we using Juju Flurry? So if you don't know what that is, no, I want to do this. So let me actually look it up. So we have another Juju, which we can actually get, which is an on-use kind of Juju, which gives us some attack speed. However, this one is the bad kind of attack speed. So there are actually two types of attack speed. We have, which is kind of complicated, but I will get into that. We have two types of attack speed. We have a type which is, I don't know, did they change that? What? No way they changed that. Maybe I'm wrong? No, I don't. I'm just going to keep it as it is. So there are two types of attack speed. There's like the flurry thing, which we have as warriors, as our talents, which increase our attack speed, and we have other types of attack speed. Things like Crusader, Blessing. What was it again? Blessing of Crusader? No. Ah, what is it called? The Paladin one, where you get small attack speed. Was it the Blessing? No, it wasn't the Blessing. I forgot about it. Whatever. Yeah, you have two different things, and the bad kind of haste actually decreases your attack power as well. So you get more attack speed, but you get less attack power. So that is actually a bad thing, which we don't want. So that's why we don't use Juju Flurry, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, but it's kind of sad. Ah, it's sealed. Yeah, I'm so stupid. I tried to think about it the same time while I was talking. It was Seal of the Crusader, I think. Yeah, as you can see, it gives us more attack speed, but we do less damage with each attack. What this one pretty much does, it decreases our attack power. And that's the same thing what Juju Flurry does, so it has kind of the same thing. That is pretty rare, however Juju Flurry has that, and that's why it's not recommended here, which is kind of sad. But yeah. Okay, good. That was a lot of information, I'm sorry, but we need to get, I said this is a comprehensive guide, so yeah, we kind of need to go through everything. I want to really have kind of talked about anything, so you actually know how to increase your DPS and so on. So potions and world buffs are some of the stuff, like consumables and world buffs and so on, like some of the stuff you can get, which you can get like by gold and so on, like passive stuff. You don't really do that actively in the raid, which can increase your DPS massively, especially world buffs increase your DPS massively. The difference between a warrior who has like world buffs and another warrior who doesn't is really insane. I beat some warriors who didn't have world buffs as well, but yeah, they were doing their rotation wrong or whatever. But definitely get world buffs. It's a huge boost. The thing is that it's only a thing really in vanilla where we can do a lot of outside stuff, outside from the raid, and that has a massive effect of our raid performance. Of course, in later expansion in TBC, everything gets like world buffs we can't even use in TBC, and consumables get shrunken down, simplified a lot, so we don't have that anymore. I personally think that is mostly a good change. I don't really like how you need to get like 40 different consumables, can stack them, and it's kind of fun to think about it a bit, but it's mostly pretty annoying, but whatever. Also, world buffs are just another topic. Next one we have the rotations. So let's say you have everything, let's actually use it correctly, so we can actually have the most benefit from our consumables and buffs. Rotation is a thing that is simple on the surface, I would say. However, there's a lot of stuff you can do which can improve your DPS a lot. There's like some complexity to it for us warriors. Other classes are not really like that. So yeah, of course, on the surface level, rotations are pretty simple, especially compared to like retail or so on. But yeah, we have some stuff where we can actually do some additional stuff apart from the like normal rotation, which can improve our DPS also massively. So yeah, right now we have like this kind of list. However, when I looked on this on the Warhead guide, it was kind of limited. Like I won't say it is a bad guide at all. No, it's really good. It's pretty simple. Like for example, execute priority, Bloodthirst Whirlwind on cooldown, use Heroic Strike whenever we can. When we have, for example, full world buffs and so on. But still, there should be a bit more information. So that's why I actually kind of made my own picture, like my own graphic, which is this one. Yeah, it is not really well made, like doesn't really look good, but I will go through it and talk about it. So yeah, which can give you some general ideas. For example, one thing this guide isn't really talking about is like your cooldowns, which I think is really important actually. Like you have your cooldowns here, but it doesn't really say, oh, you should use them. But yeah, that's what I want to talk about. So I made this kind of graphic, which is not the best looking, but we will get to it, don't worry. First of all, we have our cooldowns. So how do we use our cooldowns as warriors? So this is one of the most important things, and definitely don't try to cheap out on that. Really try to kind of do it correctly, which is kind of annoying because it really depends on your group and so on. But yeah, generally, how do we want to do it? So first of all, our diamond flask. We want to use our diamond flask 60 seconds, like when the fight length everything is pretty much relying on the fight length. So if the fight takes 60 seconds or less, we want to use diamond flask. I would recommend to use it even a bit before that. So because you have like things like your GCDs and so on. And one thing I would also recommend, for most fights you can just use it even before starting the fight, pretty much like 1 second or 2 seconds before, because the fights aren't really taking, like most fights aren't really taking 1 minute. If you have like a really good group, you definitely want to do that, because yeah, all of this really much depends on your fight timer, like of your how fast you are doing your fights. So if you have a really good group and really strong, and your kill timers are really short, definitely some things are changing, which I will talk about. But yeah, this is just a general thing first of all. So yeah, 60 seconds, because this is 60 seconds, like the duration of our Diamond Flask is 60 seconds. Next one we have Death Wish. So Death Wish lasts 30 seconds, so we want to cast it when the rest of the fight is like 30 seconds, or I would recommend a bit higher, like 32, something like that. Because it always is varying. It's not really the same, especially when we reach execute phase, because we do a lot of damage in execute phase, so it will change pretty much. But yeah, next one we have Mike the Rage Potion, which is like the DPS potion we use to get some extra rage. The buff, like the duration of the buff is 20 seconds, so we also want to use that when we have like 20 seconds left of the fight. And then we have Recklessness, which only lasts 15 seconds, so that's also really important to cast that when the fight's only 15 seconds left. However, this is all dependent on how long your kill timers are. So that's also another thing where things like Warcraft Logs could become really important, because you can see your kill timers on here and you can pretty much compare it. If you have a really good group, for example like this guy, you can see like the kill times are incredibly short. Mostly like you have kill timers which are even shorter than 15 seconds. When that is the case, you can pop all your cooldowns before the fight even starts, or at the start. For example, Recklessness, if you know the fight takes shorter or takes like 15 seconds, or really close to it, even like 17 seconds, you can cast it at the start. Why is that the case? So we get some benefit of our actually Bloodthirst and so on also being able to crit. What we normally want to have is we want to have every cooldown stacked up in our execute phase. That's the most important thing, where you can do the most damage. So we want to have every cooldown in that phase. However, another thing which is also really important is, right at the start you have like a higher percentage of chance to proc some of your things. For example, like things like Crusader and so on. And then it can become really important to have that ability where shorter kill times are actually really insane. Like kill times are one of the most important things. Really makes or breaks our cooldown usage. There are like multiple times where I casted Death Wish too early, and then at the end I didn't have it for execute phase and things like that, which can massively pretty much have an impact on your DPS. So the best thing would be if you had all of these buffs in the whole fight, which is difficult for probably most guilds on some fights. However, the other thing would be we want to have everything on the execute phase. So yeah, that would be the other thing. So definitely try to stack these. That's the most important thing. So let's actually go to our rotation next. So yeah, that's these things, like what these things are supposed to be. So this one's all about our cooldowns. These ones and also this one, which I will get into, is for our rotation. So first of all, let's talk about Bloodthirst and Whirlwind. So these two abilities should always be on cooldown. There's one exception, I will get into that. But yeah, always have these on cooldowns. What this also means is we want to have a certain amount of rage. So don't rage stuff yourself, because you don't want to miss a GCD where you can't use one of these because you don't have enough rage. You will always want to use them as right as they come up. So yeah, try to have enough rage also always for them. That's one thing. Other thing, when we are pretty much looking at that, we also need to look at Heroic Strike. So what happens if we have more rage? Which will pretty much happen when we have full world buffs and so on, and also consumables and so on. We will have way more rage than just for this. We have a lot of other rage. Where can we dump it? We dump it on Heroic Strike. So that's another thing. So when we have full world buffs, we can kind of pretty much spam Heroic Strike. When you have full world buffs, we can pretty much kind of spam Heroic Strike. So yeah, however, we still want to watch our rage. There can be situations even with full world buffs where we don't really have enough rage to cast Bloodthirst or Whirlwind. So we overdid it a bit and we will lose DPS. Because these ones should always be on cooldown. Except one exception, which I will talk about. But yeah, this is one really important thing. So definitely try to do that. Definitely, if you have like full world buffs and have a lot of rage, definitely try to spam your Heroic Strike as well. One thing, however, you need to, which I didn't really write here, is this one also gives you a lot of threat. So you need to watch out for that. So you don't pull the boss or maybe much threat cap the boss, and then you are pretty much done for, unless you do something, or maybe a person bobs you or something. One thing is also really important. If you do a lot of DPS and you have maybe you have a good and fast paladin who bobs you, so you don't get killed and wipes the raid. What you can do is you can have something like a cancel aura macro and cast it on one of your abilities that you spam, maybe on your like Bloodthirst or something. So you instantly lose the threat, and then you can just continue with doing your normal rotation again. But yeah, that would be another thing. However, yeah, one thing which I talked about is you really need to watch your rage, even if you are spamming, even if you have your full world buffs, because you really don't want to waste in GCD not being able to cast this because you use too much rage. You can be kind of unlucky. Maybe you don't really crit a lot. There's a lot of luck involved as well, like with critical strikes. So yeah, that's what's really important. The thing is, with full world buffs, we are kind of crit capped, but not our white hits. So there can be situations where that can happen. And we don't get enough rage and we cast Heroic Strike, and then we are kind of doomed because we can't use these. So we kind of use like one or two, you lose one of two GCDs of not being able to cast these, and then our cooldowns will be kind of scuffed. So yeah, we did that. So we are doing that, we are fighting the boss. So now what happens is we are at below 20% of the boss. So the boss is like below 20%. What do? Now it becomes really easy, to be honest. You just spam execute. That's it. When we can cast execute, it becomes our top priority. We cast execute on every global. So spam execute, spam that button. That's what you will do. However, one thing, you will also keep Heroic Strike queued. Why is this important? First of all, we are doing more damage. So that's one thing. Another thing, our offhand gets a benefit from the Heroic Strike thing. You probably know about this, but yeah, it has a higher percentage to hit. And we get like more rage by that. And then we can even spam more execute. So yeah, definitely try to do that. Also, there's like some even discussions to use a faster weapons in execute phase. So you get even like have faster upkeep on rage, because you don't really need a lot of rage for execute, especially if you have talented it. So you can spam it more. The thing is, execute doesn't really scale, it does like base damage. That's also a thing where we don't really use it in later expansions, but it's a ton of damage in vanilla compared to the other abilities for the low cost of rage it does. There were even some other talks, because Bloodthirst, for example, scales with our attack power. So there were some discussions when you have like 2000 attack power or more, Bloodthirst kind of outscales execute, and you would use Bloodthirst instead of execute when you have it. However, I don't really would try that, just do your execute. There are like multiple discussions, it's not really that clear. I would, if I'm being honest, just use execute, that's it. So don't use Bloodthirst or Whirlwind when we are in execute phase. Just spam your execute, that's it. It's also pretty simple. And definitely try to keep your Heroic Strike queued. So yeah, what is this? This is about cooldowns, whatever. Why is hamstring here? Hamstring is another thing we can use. So for example, which would be our filler. So let's say we are using Bloodthirst, we are using Whirlwind, we are using Heroic Strike, and we still have a lot of rage left. We can use Hamstring as a filler for that. We would get some extra damage, and this one can proc some effects, which is also really important. If you play on Horde, so that's why I have written Horde down here. So if you play on Horde, this one can also proc Wind Fury. So this is a really important strat if you play Horde. So you get some extra attacks for that. You get even some extra rage. So definitely use this as your filler spell when you are Horde. So you can actually use some Hamstring as well. Yeah, that's pretty much that. So you definitely have that as well. So that's pretty much everything. Like the rotation kind of simplified. Is there anything else I could mention here? Yeah, I didn't really mention grenades or something. And this is also for Fury Warriors, so it's not about two-hand warriors. So yeah. Yeah, I don't really play two-hand warrior and didn't really want to make another graph. This one was kind of AIDS because it was on paint. So as you can probably see, so it looks really bad or whatever. I hope this can give you some kind of ideas what you need to do. But yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Good. We have talked about that. A lot of stuff to talk about, to be honest. It's a lot of stuff. But yeah, I try to kind of keep it short, but I'm not the best at it. Next one we have is kill timers. So I talked about how your buffs and how your consumables affect your DPS, how a right rotation of course affects your DPS. You will see in my videos and so on. I will try to use my CDs effectively, but sometimes I'm failing, so yeah, that can also be a thing. But yeah, you should have a general idea. Actually, don't really brainlessly use your consumables, use your cooldowns. That's not really a good idea. So yeah, try to kind of have an idea how you want to use them. Also, as well as on which fights you want to use them. So that's another thing, because you don't have every buff, and like you won't have recklessness on every fight, like on every boss. And also like damage blast, also a thing you won't have on every fight. So try to use them on fights where you really want to parse, or fights where you really need high damage. For example, there's that one fight in Zul'Gurub, I think Arlok or whatever it's called, where you need to do a lot of DPS really fast, or so you can actually skip like phase 2 of it. Or maybe like Hakar would be another one where you need to do a lot of DPS, so you don't need to do like the blood siphon thing. But yeah, that would be like two cases that are in my head right now. Yeah, but otherwise you also want to increase your on which boss you want to parse probably, and on which boss you actually have most of your consumables and so on. If you have a limited amount of consumables, which are like only for like a couple of bosses, try to use all your buffs and so on that one. Good. Next one, again, kill timers. Kill timers are also really important. However, this is a thing you can't really influence that much. That pretty much depends on your group. If you are kind of in a casual guild and so on, it's way harder for you to parse actually. So that's another thing. Why kill timer affect us that much? As you can see, every cooldown is of course time based. That's one thing. Another thing is, if you can pop all your cooldowns at the start, you can pretty much use all of your abilities. And for example, let's just say recklessness. So let's say you have a lot of warriors. Every warrior pops their recklessness at the start and so on, and the boss dies in like 10 seconds or so. You will do insane amount of damage because everything is getting boosted by your recklessness and so on. So that's really insane. And every cooldown, of course, you will benefit from that, from the full effect. And that's, yeah, you will do a lot more damage than having, of course, a longer kill timer. Longer kill timers makes things more inconsistent. You will have stuff where you don't really have every buff active at all at the same time. You kind of need to rely on the execute phase. And yeah, that's kind of a pretty annoying thing. But that's what you need to think about. Like I said, if you are in a more casual guild or so and your kill times are pretty high, it will be way harder for you to actually parse, get a really good parse. So that's the thing, don't get discouraged by that. If you don't really have a really high parse, you can still get a really good parse still, like you can still get like purples and so on, and even oranges of course, even with higher kill timers. That's always a possibility. But it will be way harder to get like the best parses if your kill timers aren't low enough. And that's only a thing that your whole guild, you need to work with your whole guild for that. Or if you do a puck, good luck. Then you need to be really lucky. Maybe you enter a puck which is really like, I don't know, really hardcore or something. But yeah, that's another thing I want to mention. So don't get discouraged. There are like other things which you can't really influence. Even if you do the best rotation, even if you have all the buffs and so on, but your kill timers are shit, yeah, you will still do less DPS. Okay. One thing I forgot to talk about is actually gear. So that would be another thing. So let me actually go into that. Gear is something which is also really important, of course. You don't want to have the most shittiest gear. However, one thing that will be kind of weird to hear, world buffs, for example, are way more important than gear. Of course, you have some things, let's say you can't really go into the raid with like, I don't know, white rarity gear and so on, or like green gear, and expect even with full buffs to do the same damage as another warrior with like full rank 14s and so on. So yeah, I don't want to make that example, but still, world buffs and so on are like in general more important than your gear. Because the gear we have in Classic, most of it isn't actually that strong. Like it isn't that insane. We have a couple of pieces, like for example like Onslaught Girdle, Quick Strike Ring, Diamond Flask of course. We always are using Diamond Flask. Things like that, Lionheart Helmet. Things which are accompanying us throughout the whole expansions kind of. But still. The gear isn't that insane, so if you have, let's say you have close to Biz and another guy has like Biz and you have full world buffs, if you do your rotation right, you will 100% beat him if he doesn't have like full world buffs and kind of fucks up his rotation. For me personally, like the gear I am using right now, it's not really the best, so that's another thing. I don't really have the best gear at all. I don't know if I can actually show it on here. Maybe if I go into this fight. Ooh. Can I go into here? And summary, I think. No, I wanted to show my gear. Yeah, this is my gear right now, so I have some really good pieces, but I don't have rank 14, so that's one thing. I don't have like the best swords. I have pretty good swords, however. Yeah, but I don't have like the best in sword gear. However, I still have, I think I would say I have decent Parses. And another thing is, I still plenty of time beat like rank 14 warriors and so on. So yeah, that's another thing. You don't really need the best of the best gear. Gear is in factor, of course. Yes, that's true. Especially hitting like your milestones, like getting enough hit and so on. However, world buffs and so on are more important. So yeah, that's also what I wanted to mention. Short thing about gear. Definitely try to, but still try to improve on your gear. That's still very important. I don't mean by that you can just ignore your gear and just get world buffs and so on. That's not true. No, you should still try to get your gear and chance and so on. It's also really important. Pretty much you need like multiple stuff to increase your DPS. Like multiple stuff is of course affecting your DPS. Another thing, yeah, like I said, don't really get discouraged by not having high Parses. It's a thing, like Parses still, this is like a pretty easy game. It doesn't really matter that much at all. Even if people are, I don't know, are like insulting you or something, don't really care about that. Who cares, to be honest. Like people who are going like hardcore into Parses and rating other players and so on, just on how good their Parses are, pretty, yeah, they are pretty retarded, like, let's be honest. yeah, so don't get discouraged by this, by those kinds of people. Still try to have fun and so on. I just make these videos just to give you some guides and so on. If you want to improve, if you want to use this information, feel free as well. So that's, I think, really important overall. Yeah, a lot of people are also using some cheese tactics as well. I didn't talk about them. I don't really use them. Things like, I don't know, chicken stacking and things like that. I don't even know if you can use that, but whatever. Or waiting for recklessness. So every warrior, or like the one warrior has the recklessness up again. Like you can cheese a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's also a thing that goes into kill timers and so on. So that's another thing. Another thing I want to mention, in my personal opinion, this is probably the hardest, like hardest expansion in WoW Classic or so on, which relates into getting high parses. So this is the hardest I experienced actually trying to get high parses. Yeah, this is actually kind of insane, especially for the main raids. For example, if I don't even have orange parses right here. For Zoo Group, for example, I have some, but who cares about Zoo Group? This is another thing I didn't really talk about. Some raids are not really important for parsing. Like for example, Zoo Group. So if you want to have a really high parse, try to parse in Zoo Group, for example, then you can see some easily 99s. For these things, I didn't even have all world buffs and stuff like that. I had maybe like 2. I didn't use all consumables. I didn't really try hard. Like, I would say even like 10% of what I would do in like Blackwing layers. So yeah, this is also another thing which is affected by that. But overall, I think it's really way harder to actually get a good parse in this kind of iteration of Classic. I think the reason why that is the case is because a lot of people already played Classic. Classic errors already out, for example, and fully progressed. Yeah, this is pretty much just a fresh iteration. I think not really a lot of people are playing it, that's another case. But yeah, this game is kind of double solved. So 2019 Classic was a new thing for a lot of people. There were like a lot of information that was found and so on, because like Classic was so old by that point. No one, only like the people who played on private servers had a lot of knowledge, but a lot of knowledge of private servers was also wrong. So yeah, that was another thing. But now we have the same thing again, and everyone who played pretty much Classic, it's pretty much kind of the same thing. Now it's really solved, so everyone is known, and it's way harder to actually get good parses compared to everything else I played. Just for some comparison, these were like another character I had on Rev Classic, so like phase 1, and it was way easier to get high parses in that iteration in Rev Classic. So this is like next Remas, which is really easy raid in Rev, of course. So that's one thing, but yeah, I think it's kind of comparable to like Classic raids. So yeah, but it was way easier to get high parses here. You can see I have some multiple 90s. This one was actually 99, but I don't know. Some things kind of changed. Whatever, I don't want to talk about that too much. I didn't really like Rev. This one was really boring, though, however. But yeah, I remember I was like doing a lot of DPS, but I think I wasn't even on the damage meter on here. So that can tell you a lot about the state on warriors in Wrath of the Lich King. But yeah, it's way harder actually to parse right now, to be honest. Especially if you play in warrior, which is like the most competed class. So yeah, what I want to say at all, like, don't get discouraged if you don't really get a lot of high parses. I think also people care way less in like Classic Fresh than they maybe cared in other expansions, or like Classic 2019 or so. I think personally it's still really fun to do. So yeah, that's another thing I want to say. Overall, this was my kind of guide, how you can actually try to improve your parsing, what is parsing even, and yeah, pretty much just means improve your DPS. Of course, you can also use a lot of add-ons and so on, which can help you by that. You can also watch my videos on that. I think I have a pretty comprehensive add-on guide, which can give you some tips as well. Mostly what parsing pretty much relies on is just doing a lot of DPS. that's pretty much it. So definitely use like a damage add-on, like details and so on. So yeah, but yeah, mostly it's about mostly what's on about DPS. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is also another thing is win rates are pretty much released. They also have a thing where you can do some DPS and it will be way easier to get a high parse on that fight when it's pretty much fresh content. So that's also another thing you need to remember. So I think some fights, was it this one? No, this is a new one. But yeah, you will see that on the parsing as well. For example, you will have, for example, this one was the 77 parse, but it only did like 600 DPS. But the content was like newer. This one was on March. But yeah, compared to this one, which is lower parse, but more people did the raid, so there are more parses around. So this one is actually a lower parse. That's also another thing. If you do the content really fresh, with like all the wall buffs, everything and so on, and you know what you are doing, you can get easily a lot, really high parse, way easier than it is like later when the raid is out for a couple of weeks. Yeah, I forgot to talk about that, to be honest. So yeah, I'm sorry. So I think that's pretty much it. I think I talked about everything. This is again kind of a long video, but I will try to make some timestamps. And if you like these kinds of videos, feel free to like and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one. Have a great day. Bye.